Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast. It's Chris Larson along with Al Escobedo, and we're going to be talking a little walleye fishing today, and specifically what to do when the bite is tough. I mean, anybody can go out there when they're really going, but you get these days, especially you start getting later in the season, maybe you get that big high pressure come in and they're just tough to catch. And just talk a little bit about what you can do, things you can change up when the bite becomes a little bit of a struggle. And that's why I brought the expert in, Al Escobedo. If anybody can catch fish when they're tough to catch, it's this guy.
I don't know about all that. That's a little too much credit.
Well, you're a legend in my mind.
But we like to try. We've all had those days on the ice where you're marking them and you just can't get them to bite. We just have a couple of tricks that we've kind of talked about and tried out in the past that have sometimes worked, but there's never a fix-all. There's always some days where it's just tough and you just got to make the decision to either pull the plug or change the game altogether.
Right, there's some days where it's like, well, I guess we're going to go bluegill fishing, or well, I guess, it's a good day to have a frozen pizza.
Exactly.
But before we get to that stage, like that's the final stage, what do we do first?
There's a lot of different things you can try when it comes to tactics. The first thing that I would say that comes to my mind when you're sitting, you got your house all set up, you're sitting there and you're marking fish all day. Just would like to reiterate, if you're not using a camera and you're marking fish all day, we don't know for sure what that target species is. So it's nice if you do have a camera available to drop it down. You might be dealing with if you're just running regular flasher, you might be dealing with 6-inch perch all day, and you might be thinking you're jigging on walleyes, but you might just be on the wrong spot. That's a pretty obvious one. Drop the camera down, make sure you're on the structure you want to be on, your target, you're in the fish that you want to be targeting. Usually that's what we'll do is if we're fishing and we have a slow bite, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try a different size jig, different profile jig. I usually have a couple rods rigged up, just go to the rod box, grab something that looks different than what I'm trying. No real rhyme or reason to it, just a different profile than what you're trying before. And it could be as simple as that. And now you change that profile, he's still not biting, chasing you up, whatever, depending on how the fish is acting. Once you kind of figure out how to read your electronics, then it's like, okay, what are these things? They're acting kind of walleye-ish, but they're, so you grab out the camera, drop it down, scan, okay, there are a bunch of walleyes down there. What do we got to do to get them to bite? Like I said, changing profiles. When I fish walleyes, I fish a lot of spoons, mainly, and then I have a couple of like your jigging wraps, basically different styles and sizes and profiles of those that I kind of switch back and forth. And then your trusty old dead stick with, you name it, creek chub, fathead.
And that would be the one thing I would say, and you kind of brought it up, like I see a lot of guys that go ice fishing, and say you and I go out, we're going to have like the same thing, because you're going to be like, well, what are you catching fish on? I'll be like, well, I'm catching fish on this, lipless crankbait. I really like this color, and you're going to tie the same thing on. And if we're not catching any fish, you're just doing yourself doubly worse by having both people with the same thing. So I would say that if you're going out with somebody else and you're in a location where there are fish, and I would just start with, hey, you're going to fish with this, I'm going to fish with that. Let's see what happens. If one of us starts really getting on them and the other one's not catching anything, well, then we're going to switch and everybody's going to fish the same thing. But to start, I would say switch things up. Or even if we start with the same, if things aren't going well, we're definitely going to want to change. The other thing we bring it up a lot on this show is, you brought up the dead stick. A lot of people will go out and you're jigging with a rod and I'm jigging with a rod and we got 2 lines in the water. And it's like, well, if I can legally have 2 lines each in the water, or maybe I'm in Wisconsin where I can have 3 lines each in the water, I should have a dead stick down. I should maybe have a tip up out if I can to get a line out away from the house. But try to give yourself the best opportunity you can at catching fish.
And the big thing too, when you're talking about that, the dead stick with your live bait down there, a lot of times that's the one that they're gonna eat. You're jigging whatever, whether it's a big spoon that's flashing or your lipless crankbait that you're jigging up and down, that's more your attractor. You'll get some of those more fired up fish that are going to come in and crush that bait, but a lot of them are just going to be attracted, and then they're going to just see that minnow sitting there and come in and hit that. So you're giving them two different options, two different style presentations, and it kind of limits, it kind of shows you what's working more or less. Like if you're sitting here ripping and you're catching 1, 2, 3 on the dead stick, you know, you can always say, you know what, I'm just going to try doing double dead sticks for a couple hours, and say this one starts to slow down, then you know that you need that flash or that rattle or whatever action that was drawing those fish in, that you need to bring that one back, and then you have one of both. Or let's say your jigging rod's working and your dead stick's not doing anything. Well, at that point, your dead stick's not taking any of your energy or anything like that. That option's always down there. If you reel it up, it's not in the water. I mean, it's just doing no harm being down there, so just keep jigging your rattle bait. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, I think you brought up another thing there. Like we talked about changing lures, but a lot of it is changing cadence too. And like, I really love the Markham LX7. I put the graph mode on there, and it gives you a history of what it's reading, and you can actually get a visual representation of what that jigging cadence looks like. And it just helps you match that up. So if I know, like if it's going like this, like a heartbeat, and that's how I'm catching fish, well, the next time I drop down, I want it to look like that. If it looks like this and it's just really tight, and that's how I catch fish, I'm just going to replicate that process. And that's something a lot of people that buy that flasher, that digital flasher, they'll make it look like a flasher. They'll put the big circle on there. But the real magic in those digital flashers is being able to go to graph mode, watching your history, and just seeing what that jigging cadence looks like on the screen. And when you're getting bites, just replicate that cadence. And if you're not getting bites, and you're doing it the same way, all right, now I'm going to change it up and do it a little bit differently. And it's always going to look a little bit different on your flasher or on your Markham LX7 or MX7. And you can try to just dial in that jigging cadence, because some days they like a big stroke and some days they just like little short ones. They want it to really look like it's not bouncing all over the place and just quick. So that would be the next thing I would say. If you changed up those lures, if you've changed up those colors, if you've gone to a dead stick and you're jigging next to it and those things aren't happening, change your jigging cadence and just work how you're trying to bring those fish in.
Yep, and like I said, and then the last thing that I always like to try is going really small, especially on those high pressure days. Switch to some of your panfish tactics, panfish jigs. If you know you're on that school, switch to something really small that if they get close and they're gonna try and nip at it just to kind of figure out what it is, they're gonna suck that little bait in. I'm a big proponent of using smaller than what most people I'm fishing with at all times, but the same carries over into walleyes, especially when they get finicky. I mean, for me personally, I think that's kind of my answer to any species when they start to become finicky. You just want to make it easier for them to eat, because when they're not feeding, they don't want to exert all that extra energy. So you got to make it as easy as possible, and just making that lighter bait easy for them to suck in. That's a good thing to try as well.
Yeah, I do that a lot with panfish too. Like if you're out there, and I can't tell you how many times I've been fishing, and I'm sure it's happened to you too with people, and you're like, man, they're just not going. And you just go to literally the smallest thing you have in your box and drop it down, and it's crazy. The fish you pull, a lot of times you drop those things down there and you're like, is there really like a nice fish gonna bite this? But like, you can catch some big crappies, some big mouths with a real tiny jig, and it's amazing. Sometimes it's just what they want, and with walleyes, it's the same thing. You know, just scale down until they go for it. And the other thing is, we talk about, hey, this is the spot. Sometimes it's just not the spot. You go there, and for whatever reason, those fish that are in that spot, they're not feeding. So sometimes you just have to move too.
Yep, that's actually probably my favorite tactic. Like we've talked about on other shows, my house is more going to be used as a base camp. And then when I'm actually fishing during the day, early in the morning, towards dark before I go back to camp, I'm out searching, fishing the the higher percentage areas for those parts of the day, and then I'm going back and just sitting in the shack. And the nice thing about moving around and doing it that way is you're learning a lot more about the lake, giving yourself more opportunities, whether you only got a weekend to go, but maybe next week, now you got an option for the next time you go out there. The more you can learn the lake, the more spots you have on the lake, gives you the more opportunity to catch fish. Because that's one thing to remember, you know, there's not just one school of walleyes out there. You just got to find the hungry ones. There's going to be a hungry one out in that lake. You just got to find them.
Right. And for me, another trick that I do, and before I go to the lake, I try to take a look at maps and I look for saddles. And if you can find that spot where the fish are moving from a spot where maybe they're loafing and relaxing to where they're going to go eat, and you can get in those spots, you know, you're going to have fish trading through there all day, every day. And to me, like, that's where I want to be. I don't want to be in the parking lot. I want to be on the highway. And finding those kind of spots are really good, especially on days where things aren't going so well. But a lot of people fish in parking lots. They either fish out in that basin in the middle of nowhere, or they go up on a flat somewhere. And like, there's a ton of ground in that same area that are they look exactly the same as where you are. I don't want to be in the parking lot. I want to be on the highway.
Exactly.
Especially when things are getting tough. Anything else?
I think we covered it all. I think we gave you some good options, good tactics to try. If that bite's still giving you fits, I mean, there's a lot of different plastics. There's a lot of different jigs. If you want to just sit and work at them with different baits, you could do that all day long. You want to move around, you got those options. I mean, the sky's the limit. Just make sure you're out there having fun.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is just keep working at it. And a lot of times, you know, maybe it needs to get dark before they get going. Some lakes you're on there. Talk about baits, like, I really like the buckshot spoon is my favorite. And I think it's because it's got that noise. It's got that glow sometimes. And that's something you can mess around with too. You know, if you're using something natural and they're just not going, well, maybe where you're fishing, the light is not getting there and that natural bait isn't doing the job. So you got to go to something with some glow. So mess around with those different things as well and see what you can do. So
good luck out there, guys. Hopefully you guys can get on them, and hopefully you don't have to worry about digging into these tactics, and they just bite good for you all season long.
All right, for Al Escobedo, I'm Chris Larson. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.